Hello there, and as usual, I'm Aaron from Last Stand Gamers, and welcome. So you're probably wondering, what the hell are these things in front of me? Well, today I was messing around with a few different designs for some sort of armoured penetrating, grinding torpedo to cause absolute havoc within the enemy's ship. And these are some of the designs I came up with. As you can see, this is a rework from the original claw design. The claw was originally developed to actually have a beacon on and track a ship, and it was actually used to dig into the side of the armour, and that worked pretty well, so I'm going to be giving that a test. And I've also built a little bit of a simpler, cheaper version, something you could build in survival, landing gears, a grinder in the centre, and a few sensors on the back to guide it within the target. Now I've got two set up here below, aiming at the target themselves. I'm going to hit the button, and we should be able to send it on its way. Let's give it a little bit of an increased thrust though, because that might take all day at that rate. So we're just going to override the thrust, push it up to about 4. Now we could have this going even faster, but what I want to try to do is just to see how these sensors are actually activating. They should straighten it up towards the target as it gets closer, and it looks like it's just done that. Now let's have a look what happens here. Okay, we've got a solid lock onto the target. Now the idea of this design was there's a little timer block at the back, and the timer would activate the claws to close after 10 seconds prior to launch. And sometimes that works absolutely amazingly, and other times the claws actually get stuck within the target, so it can't penetrate as far as I would like it to go. So we'll actually just have to see what this one particularly does, and it doesn't look like it's going to be closing, so we'll have to activate it manually. Now if we use the open and close function, we can actually see the claws blades closing within the target. Now this is where things tend to go wrong, because once it's grinded them first few blocks, the actual claw tips, instead of helping it lock on, push it away from the target, and that's just causing a mega problem. So let's delete that, and we'll look at the more simplified version. Now the simpler version has more thrusters, so once it goes through the target, the idea is for it to turn around and come straight back at it to grind even more away. Right, so we'll hit the button and we'll launch it, and there we go, a little bit of a slow rate. Now the question you're probably wondering is, how could I actually get them towards an enemy ship without them being simply shot out the sky? Well, that's what that vehicle there is for, and I'll get onto that very shortly once I've shown you this secondary design. So we've got the thrusters in position to keep it on a straight course, the sensors are going to detect and center it with on the target, and we should get a nice solid cut depending on where it's going to hit on the armour. And it looks like it's picked the hardest place to actually lock on, and it's locked on to that little tab there. That's a very hard place, otherwise it would have cut through 4 straight layers. You see it's going to do its job, and it's going to be cutting through ever so slowly. I'm going to speed it up, and I'll let you have a look in a minute. So as you guys can see, it's actually came quite far through the ship now, and it's just about to cut itself out the other side. So we'll head out there and have a look when it actually manages to get itself through. And it looks like it's got to cut itself through the main hole here and then into a secondary engine bay. So let's move on to the deployment vehicle. Now the idea for this was kind of given me to by the Star Wars little things, when them little bugs jump on the side of the ship and they start welding, cutting parts off, and I just thought it'd be a really cool idea if you could actually deploy some. So we've got the actual pods in here on the bottom, but this time I've got the grinders in situ in a nice straight row. So the idea would, you'd fly over, do a sort of Pearl Harbor sort of idea. The ship's unaware, it's docked in a private little port. You come over and you'll look your nice transport ship, cargo ship in this case, and you happen to drop these off. What a way of starting a war that would be. So let's hop inside and we'll head over, then have a quick look. And I've just set up to have a few buttons, but you could probably have it set up to have it even less. So you'd just be flying over the ship casually. You could even be doing this like miles up in the air above the ship. I just happen to be getting a little bit close. So in this case, let's get a little bit of distance so you can see them drop out at the bottom. And we're going to hit 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then we're going to do a little bit of power. And the actual drill bits will fall out, like you can see. And they're all going to get nice suction on the deck, and they're going to start cutting themselves through. Now, you can imagine if a player wasn't actually aware of this, he was working maybe on his station, the actual hazards that these actually cause. Now, since we're in creative, you don't actually get to see these connectors throwing out objects, but a secondary purpose as well of these is to throw out the objects they actually cut, so they cause debris, more problems for the player. He even has to go and collect the items up. He can't just simply access and hack back into the connector and get all those resources. These resources can be thrown all over the deck of his ship, as well as cutting a ship technically in half if you aligned these up correctly. We'll have to try that shortly. So we're cutting up the big red here, we're going through the different compartments, and we're working pretty fast. Due to the actual drop angle of these, you tend to get a very nice straight line. We've got one dropping quite far into the hull there, and just below here I believe is one of the main decks for the ship that we can actually have a look through here. And you could have all sorts of different things being cut away. You could have engine cells, just depending on where the actual player puts his items. So it's just a really cool little idea to actually have a mess around, and you could be flying away in your big green ship now, and then the guy's panicking, trying to sort out all these connectors, trying to hack them, trying to turn them off, trying to cut power to them. But there's obviously more than one power source. The other power source is hidden within inside. So the guy's going to spend a little bit of time trying to grind it to stop it. It's just a really interesting way, if you ask me, of just taking out someone's ship out of play before the war even starts, you could say. So for this second attempt, I'm going to do a quick deploy and try to cut the ship in actual half. I'm going to end for an actual priority area, so you can see them engines in the middle. They're going to be our priority target, so we're just going to hover above them. And just to demonstrate how far you can actually be above it, we're just going to take it up a little bit of an altitude. But technically, we could be miles and miles up in the sky. We wouldn't even need to see this ship, as long as we're aligned correctly, maybe with a beacon or so on. And we're just going to simply drop these 1, 2, 3, and 4. A little bit of a pull up to suck them actually out of the ship, and they're going to be heading on down, and you can see that we're going to get some really nice cuts on the target. Now some of the damage you're going to see is done to the landing gears, because I'm actually using the landing gears to absorb a lot of the damage as well, so the drill blade or the grinder can actually hold on. Now if a blade or an actual torpedo misses, what will happen is it will try to turn its head back and face the target itself. So I believe one over here almost missed the target, but it actually turned itself around, so we should have 6 drills. And then this torpedo here, when it cuts off, should try to actually correct itself and turn itself to the left, so we'll have to watch this one as it cuts through the engine and just see exactly what happens. So as you can see, the drills have been at work cutting through this ship. By this time, I'd have to say the player would have probably stopped them all by now, or had enough time to actually try to blow them all up. But if he didn't, or he wasn't paying attention to his ship, he would pretty much have a ship that's almost snapped in half and pretty much useless to him. So as you can see here, we've got them turned on. And even if he had turrets on his ship, once these managed to actually stick themselves to the deck, there's one coming back. You see that one's actually came back around and actually decided to drill itself over there. So even cooler. And we're almost through the hull. And I think there's a few other actual ones that have decided to spin around. One lost control completely over there. I tried to throw a few at it as well, and they just went crazy. They're from previous test. But the main ones that I'm using in the latest sort of version tend to loop themselves back around and bring themselves back to the target, and that's exactly what I was trying to mess with. And we're almost cut in 2 now. So we're almost seconds now from cutting the ship in 2 with these little tools. It's just that one block that's holding it together. So we'll have to actually see what happens. And there we go. Ship's in half. Very nice. Let's have a look what this torpedo did that came back. So the one that came back cut itself a hole in there, decided to go in diagonally. It's just really crazy. I would like to thank you guys for watching, and I can't wait to hear about your crazy inventions that you've been building. Anyway, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.